So this afternoon / nighttime's plan is trans mount. As you can tell, I got the truck up on some ramps. I jacked it up the other day and figured this would be plenty of room for clearance. Problem is though, with this thing in the air like this, man, it's going to be a pain in the ass to work on this thing. So what I want to do, get the transmission cross member bolts cut, jack the tranny up a little bit, slide the trans cross member into place, bolt the transmission to the cross member, and put the new bolts through the frame cross member bolt holes. I'll show you when I get down there, but Ford did a cool thing where they actually made factory bolt holes, 1, 2, 3, like an inner line on the frame rails. And my assumption is that is to adjust for engine transmission configurations for those years. It's in a pretty easy location, so that's nice. So enough BS in here. I'm gonna get the grinder hooked up, cut off wheel, put on the grinder, bing bang boom. Should be like a couple cuts real quick. There's some bolts. That'll be free. Get the car jack back in here, jack up on the trans, just enough to keep some weight off of it, and then yeah. So let's do that real quick. Okay, hopefully you can see what I'm referring to here. This bolt right here, and if you look, there's 1, 2, 3 provision holes on both sides, and I believe if I take this, slide it forward, that'll put me dead center for my cross member for the trans mount. Anything I don't know, is there, I don't know, we'll figure that out momentarily. So let's get the slicing and the dicing here and get these bolts out of the way. Make sure you wear your safety glasses, just like that. You know what that is? It's called a poor man's lowering kit. It's hard to see. I didn't lower this side yet, but this side, man, it's a fucking mess in here. It is exactly a 1/2 inch higher in the back than it is in the front, and I plan for the back end to squat just a little bit more when I'm done. This boggles my mind. Like I'm glad I had a helmet on, because my brains just went. I've been contemplating how low I want to go with this truck. Been contemplating how I want to do it. If I want to get one of the Dream Beam setups, or if I wanted to do this, want to do that. And the more and more I thought about it, I'm like, I want to try something cheap, easy. I don't have to buy a bunch of extra BS. But if I have to buy extra BS, I'll just go that route. So this bitch is looking dope, hella dope. It's hard to see, but it's literally sitting 12 inches from the bottom of the cab to the floor, 12.5 from the bottom of the bed to the floor. So we're exactly where I wanted to be. I ended up taking exactly 1 3/4 of a coil out. The first shot, I took a coil and a pinch, what I assumed to be about a 1/2 a coil. And on the second shot, I took the remainder of that first coil. So, you know, almost, well, about a coil and a third. So it brought it down, you know, I think it dropped at 3 inches. What I measured, if I measured properly, it dropped 3 inches. So I'm going to try to show you guys how to do it on the passenger side here. Make some space quick, and I'll get you in here. Okay, let's walk you through the process of how to professionally drop a pick-em-up truck with front coil springs. The tools you're going to need is an Amazon angle grinder, Amazon grinder wheels, cutoff wheels. Get the cheapest ones possible, so you know, at mild RPMs on the grinder, it just explodes and flies into your pant leg and hits your hoodie and misses your face. And instead of throwing them all away because you know they're dangerous, you continue to use them. So buy those. Your impact of choice with your socket for your lug nut to get your tire and wheel off. This is not required, but it helps. 9/16 socket and ratchet and a light. I'm going to show you just how easy this really is. People on YouTube, don't be ashamed to go on YouTube and try to figure out how to do this yourself, because I went online, did some research, and all the YouTube videos were showing me how simple and easy this was to do. But everyone I watched basically tore the whole front end apart to do it. And I was like, man, I don't want to do all that, but if I have to, I will. And I found one guy, I think it was Hot Rods Africa or Africa Hot Rod. He had a 75, I believe it was, f150, same setup this is pretty much. And all he did was take a couple bolts out and just lower the spring, cut it, put it back in, drop it down again. You know, he made it look really easily. So I'm going to show you how I did it. It's not the right way, but it works. It does work, trust me. I just did it on our side. I'd like to show you over here how easy this really is.
Now, I have some bit of problem with these lug nuts. Make it look like a damn fool. Why did it do that? That's 2 for 2, something's wrong here.
I had a bad wheel lug. It appears at some point in time in its life it was stripped out. Part of it was anyhow. So I'll buy new lug nuts. The threads on the stud look phenomenal, so I don't know what that was all about. I'm gonna inspect the rest of them and make sure it was just a one single fluke thing. But might get some more light down here so you can see. I'm telling you, this is ridiculous. Like, absolutely ridiculous how easy this was to do. Let me get that out of the way right now. Let me bring the old light down here. Quick explanation. This is your coil spring. There is a large nut at the very bottom. Hope you can see that. A large nut on a stud at the bottom. And up here, you'll see 2 9/16 bolts. And right here is the bolt and stud for your shock. Do not hesitate. Don't even mess with it. Don't get a wrench. Don't get a socket. Just take a grinder, cut that freaking thing off below the nut. If you're going to replace them anyway, I'll replace them in a few weeks when I buy new ones. But for now, I'm going to just get this hard part out of the way, because I got to replace shocks, brake lines, brakes, etc. on the front end. So for right now, we'll get this thing lowered, see where it sits at, and all that stuff, and then I'll buy new shocks and brake lines and calipers and all that stuff, then rejuvenate the front end, so that's done. But yeah, here's your rotor, brake. That one's kind of freed up. That's a shame, man. It's actually in pretty good shape. But yeah, so we're going to take this coil and we're going to cut out. That's, I think, right about here or back here. I'll check real quick. But I'll show you how to drop this out real fast. I'm telling you, it's stupid easy. Just take these 2 bolts out. And there's a little band clamp that holds the... Actually, I think mine's broke. Yeah, mine is broke. Look at that. See? Well, that one's broken, so no big deal. I probably should order a new one then. Hit a hard enough bump, that's going to fall right out. Well, half the job just got easier. So now all I got to do now is cut that shock tower off and just drop the front end. Drop the I-beam, that should come right out and spin on itself. So, in a perfect world, you'd have to take them bolts out. That clamp would come out. All you got to do is take one the whole way out and the other bolt halfway out and just spin the clamp out of the way. That, therefore, you know, it's a retaining clip of sorts. You know, then the spring can come out. So I'm going to cut this shock off and then drop the front end, and then show you what I'm going to do next. Now, as you can see, essentially all the weight of this front axle is sitting on that jack. So you lower the jack, this all comes down. I'll lower the jack, you guys can watch. Since it's rusty and seized up, probably meant to wiggle it a few times. Just sit here and watch it real quick, would you? See how easy that was? Just like that. That coil spring's free to do what you gotta do, but it's still bolted in at the bottom. So, here's the coil. If you look up inside of here, you'll see where there's a little flat stopper for the edge of the coil spring to sit up inside. It's hard to see. And what you want to do, especially when you have one to go off of, reference it here. Okay, so we can turn this coil to about here and make our cut approximately here. So what you can do, get your coil pieces set in there however you need to be and compare the depth. Again, far from perfect, but this is called hot rodding, folks. This ain't precise machine work. I got a little score right there, and if my eyeballs are correct, this should be exactly almost the same. Safety first. Safety glasses on. One more thing I want to mention before I get too far in this cut. You're losing the top spring, top coil and a half. So if you're using an angle grinder like I am, your wheel could potentially cut your lower spring. If you need to or want to, favor the upper coil so you can cut into what you're going to lose anyway, instead of damaging or cutting into the lower coil that might break down the road if it's got a weak spot in it you didn't see. So see, if I continue that cut flat and straight, I'm eventually going to hit down here with the blade. Don't be afraid to favor up top with your cut, because you can cut into this, it won't hurt anything. If you cut down into here, you're creating a weak spot in the coil. Just some food for thought. Bingo. Now I just scuffed the top of it up, so when I go to put it back in, it ain't too god awful terrible. So what we can do now, essentially, is just pick this axle back up, and if the locking tab retaining clip was functionable, we just go ahead and fix that, but it's not, so we can't. We'll have to do one day is buy a new one, cut this old one off, pop it in. But for now, what we're doing, the truck's gonna be sitting here for quite a while, so it's not a big hurry. I just can't forget to do it. I should have brought the jack on this side of the truck. Let me do that real quick. The hardest part of this is getting those two bolts out for the retaining band clamp for the coil spring itself. Also, when you're putting your coil spring back into place, you want to guide this cut end of your coil spring back into its retaining valley, if you will, on top of the coil spring shock tower. And see how it kind of fell into place right there? It just shifted. That's where it's supposed to stay. It's where it kind of locks in itself. That's all up in there. All up in there. So, put the tire back on. And I think, well, that's almost. Yep, put the wheel and tire back on and get back with you guys in a minute here. It's that easy. It really is that easy to lower these trucks. So if you're trying to save money, that cost me literally nothing. I mean, I already had to cut the tools to cut them. The tools to remove his wheel and tire. To go out and buy the lowering kit, the coil springs, and etc. and all that stuff, you're looking at $1,000 easily. I just lowered this truck 3.5 inches, 3 inches for, I mean, if you want to count the tools, $100 or less, honestly. So it can be done, folks. Now it might ride a little softer or different. If I put lighter springs and shocks in the front, it'll ride smooth. You lose a little bit of play, but It ain't no big. I ain't got a big block in here no more. So it's a small block motor. It's lighter. It's gonna look awesome. We get this thing lowered on the ground already. Boom, just like that, buddy. The truck is officially lowered. If you look, plenty of shock and give. Man, it looks awesome. That's like, it's not too hatefully low where you got a bunch of camber. It ain't too low where you're like dragging frame anywhere. Yeah, I'd love to have a mini truck one day with airbags just because, but this is like perfect height. Open the door. You just kind of plop your ass in the seat. Man, that's awesome. It could probably go a little bit lower in the front, honestly, if I'm being honest. But I think once it's on the road, I have like almost no camber in the front now, which is perfect. I didn't want a whole lot of camber to mess with, so sweet. And of course, I'm sure once it get, you know, I'll buy some lighter shocks so it kind of floats a little more down the road. Awesome. It's coming together. Little by little, it's coming together. So, alright, I'll leave you guys that there for tonight. I'll holler at y'all tomorrow. I think tomorrow Chelsea and I are going to get the patina work done to this truck. Just because I'm waiting on some parts to show up. So I don't get too carried away with big projects. As of right now, all that's really left is brake lines, front brakes, shocks in the front, fuel tank. I got a list of things to do, but it just needs to do it, kind of thing. And I want to get this front end finished and done before I go back to the back of the bed again. Because I'm always hell on myself. I always do the easy stuff first, and that's the wrong way to do it. Just take my advice. Pick the hardest part of the truck to work on. Do it first. Get the hard stuff out of the way, and the tedious stuff can be done in a weekend. Because I took the bed off this truck and had that ass end lowered and bushinged out and everything done in a matter of a weekend. And here, yeah. Anyway, enough babbling. I'll see you guys tomorrow night.